10 plus waiver wire pickups going into week 9 of the fantasy football season. I don't want to waste any more time because there is a lot of information that I'm going to be bringing you here today. And starting off with the bye weeks, 4 teams in our bye weeks: Broncos, Lions, Jags, 49ers. Over 17 players from those teams specifically that are going to be missing week 9 of the fantasy football season. Obviously, some key players: CMC, Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Monty, Calvin, the list goes on, right? So make sure you set your lineup accordingly. And right before I actually get into my list, I wanted to bring you some players that should already be rostered coming into week 9. I think these players are key. And I think some of these players have been rostered, just haven't been performing to the way we hoped and expected to throughout the year as well. And starting off with the list here: Kyler Murray, Cam Akers, who's starting to pick up, and Mark DeMarcado, who's also getting a lot of workload, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the rookie out of Seattle over there, is doing great things. He did get that touchdown saved. Saved his fantasy day, but still he's progressing week by week. Romeo Dubs, Jahan Dotson finally also having a big game, the game that we were hoping for all year long. We finally get that. Is that going to be consistent? He should already be rostered. If not, I would definitely be picking him up. And the 2 tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Jake Ferguson, both of these guys both had great games coming into week 8. Once again, should already be rostered. Let's get straight into my list. All right, some key injuries at the quarterback position, specifically in your Superflex league. Hopefully you weren't affected by this, but I think one of the biggest ones here this week is Kirk Cousins at the quarterback position. He tore his Achilles for the Minnesota Vikings against the Green Bay Packers this past week. And look, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't think the long-term answer for this year is Jaron Hall. Do they trade for a bridge quarterback? Is that a Ryan Tannehill? Do they get somebody, I don't know, that's a free agent, Matt Ryan? Whatever the case may be, Kirk Cousins is the biggest hit coming into this week at the Superflex position. Kenny Pickett as well also might be missing a week on a short week. Desmond Ridder getting benched essentially for Taylor Heineke, quote unquote. He had a concussion. I doubt it, in my opinion. Tyrod Taylor, obviously he was ready to back up. We weren't expecting too much of a big thing, but Daniel Jones hopefully is coming back coming into next week. And my first waiver wire priority for week 9, at the tight end position, yes, a tight end is my first waiver wire priority, and that is Trey McBride. Look, we all expected him to have an uptick in production, an uptick in his workload, but nothing to compare to what we saw here today. 10 receptions, 14 targets, 95 yards and a touchdown, over 25 points this week against the Baltimore Ravens. He finished as tight end 1. And look, we all hoped and expect that this is exactly what, not this expectation, not 25 points, but we hope that he was going to get the workload. We hope he was going to get the uptick in production. This happened with Josh Dobbs. Just imagine what happens with Kyler Murray coming into this year. Hopefully, apparently the reports he's not going to come in next week in week 9, but the week after. So hopefully in week 10. But he led this team in targets. He was tied for second in route run with Michael Wilson. And also the snap percentages, he was third in snap percentages behind Hollywood Brown and Michael Wilson. He is going to be a key factor to this offense. He is going to be someone that Kyler Murray maybe can check the ball down when he comes back, a safety blanket for the near future. And this is the type of talent that we were hoping and expecting from Trey McBride. And if you are a win now, not a win now team, obviously if you're playing redraft, you're a win now. But if you are maybe struggling at the tight end position, you have a couple injuries, Trey McBride is somebody that I'm willing to spend about 10 to 15% of my fab to try and get on my team. Maybe you have a Cole Kmet, maybe you have a Jake Ferguson. I know I kind of mentioned him earlier in the video. I think you can see a little bit more consistency because of how bad this offense is scoring against other teams at times, and they always play from behind, where Trey McBride could be a key factor, especially once Kyler Murray gets back onto the field. So pick up Trey McBride if you can. My second waiver wire priority at the running back position is Chuba Hubbard. And my goodness, if you are a Miles Sanders owner, I think it is time to panic. I mean, even in a dynasty perspective, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's one game, but this is horrendous. The opportunities that we saw Chuba Hubbard get over Miles Sanders. I mean, let's start there. Chuba Hubbard, 15 carries on the ground, 2 catches in the air. That is 17 opportunities in total. Miles Sanders, 2. How many points does Miles Sanders have? 0. How many points does Chuba Hubbard had? I mean, he didn't have a best game either. Only 7.4. He led this backfield in snaps. 67% of the snap share Chuba Hubbard got versus, what sounds crazy, Miles Sanders 17. He was on the field, but he didn't get the opportunity that we all expected. I mean, Raheem Blackshear got more carries on the ground than Miles Sanders with 3 attempts. He also got more targets. He didn't get more snaps. He got 10 snaps versus Miles Sanders 12. But that is a huge concern when you think of Miles Sanders long term. And look, this could look completely different next week. But at the moment, Chuba Hubbard available in over 50% of ESPN leagues and just over 35% of sleeper leagues. So he's a bit bare out there in some of your leagues. But if he is available, he could be a starting asset for you coming into this week. They are playing the Indianapolis Colts going into week 9, and they gave up the 4th most amount of points to the running back position so far this year. Can Chuba Hubbard show his true strength in that game? I mean, obviously they played the Houston Texans, who is not the best, well, not the best, I guess, defense to score on in the running back position, I would say. So they're a pretty good run defense. But the Indianapolis Colts is completely flipping the switch there. And if one of these guys can get hot, we can truly see the hot hand for the rest of the season. So Chuba Hubbard is my first running back priority that you should be attacking at the waiver wires this week. All right, my third waiver wire priority of this week is Devin Singletary here. And this is kind of what we were expecting when it came down. I did give Dameon Pierce one more week to really showcase what he can do against the Carolina Panthers, who gave up the 2nd most points to the running back position. And let me tell you, he really disappointed. And let's start there. Dameon Pierce, 12 carries, 46 yards, only 4 fantasy points coming into this week. But who got the more opportunities, or not the more opportunities, but got very similar opportunities to him is Devin Singletary, 10 carries for 30 yards, but he did catch 2 opportunities in the air versus Dameon Pierce, none. So they essentially were 50-50 in this backfield, splitting opportunities. Devin Singletary got 6 points, but I think it's the eye test now. You know, it's once again, I am a big advocate for that, was a big advocate for Dameon Pierce. Now it's kind of hard to defend him. It's kind of hard to say, hey, where's this opportunity coming from? What is happening? Is he really losing his step? I mean, there was so many opportunities at the goal line where Dameon Pierce could have punched it in, and he just didn't. He couldn't do it. I thought he did when he got to the end zone and they reversed that touchdown call. Still, I think when you look at this offense, it operates better with Devin Singletary. And I think if you have Devin Singletary on your waiver wires, which he is available in over 67% of ESPN leagues and over 70% of sleeper leagues, you should be picking him up, because if they are down bad versus a team where they're down, let's say 20 points, 14 points, whatever the case may be, Devin Singletary could get peppered with targets in the secondary, in the backfield for this running back room. So if you do need a running back, I'm happy to spend about 10 to 15% of the fab for Devin Singletary as a 50-50 workload. I think we're going to be seeing this continue to flip. You know, I thought it was going to be a drastic change coming into this week, but it's still 50-50. But expect that maybe to be 55 to 45 coming into next week in favor of Devin Singletary. All right, my next running back on this list is Big Ol' Roscoe. I think we kind of been talking about him for a couple weeks already, and he is available in over 50% of ESPN and over 40 or just 40% of sleeper leagues. And the reason why this could be a good opportunity, I think a lot of people are going to drop him based off of the opportunities that they saw, you know, the minuscule points that he got, 6 carries. He wasn't really utilized that much, but if you're watching this video, you might have an edge on your leagues, because let me tell you something. Rashawn Johnson led this backfield in snaps, okay, on the field, which is pretty significant. Week 1 coming in with Deontay Foreman, not week 1 specifically, but coming into this week, already outsnapped him by 3 opportunities in this game specifically. And this is kind of what we were expecting. We're saying this team is going to be down, and Rashawn Johnson is going to be the pass catching back. He also led or was tied with his team in targets in the air. Dontarian Evans also took some opportunities, which is a little bit annoying. He did score that touchdown, but he also got 4 targets in the air. Now, he didn't lead the backfield in attempts on the ground. It was actually Deontay Foreman, but that's okay, because we're expecting him to be the pass catching back. Now, coming into the season, I think this is going to increase, more and more. They are playing the New Orleans Saints and then the Carolina Panthers the week after. And if Khalil Herbert is not there, the Carolina Panthers do give it the second most points to the running back position. And if he can get past New Orleans, have a decent game, and then the Carolina Panthers, maybe we can see Rashawn Johnson really have a big game in the next coming weeks. So definitely somebody I'm willing to spend 10 to 15% of fab coming into week 9. All right, my 5th waiver wire priority, my first quarterback on this list, especially if you're in a super flex league, so definitely pay attention. Will Levis. No one was expecting this. No one was expecting this type of performance from Will Levis, and I am pretty surprised. I wouldn't call myself a massive Will Levis believer. I was a massive Will Levis believer before I did my initial report on him. When I was doing the eye test, I was like, hey, he could play. He has a good arm. He could run as well. And then, when you start really looking into the nitty-gritty of his film, it doesn't really impress you. And that's where he fell into my rankings in the pre-draft process. But I still believed in him, saying that he has a talent there. He just needs to go into the right system. And looking at this may be the right system for Will Levis. And I do believe we are not going to be seeing Ryan Tannehill when he does come back and is healthy, because already in week 1, his debut, he has scored more touchdowns so far. More touchdowns this game than Ryan Tannehill has thrown all season. Ryan Tannehill has only thrown 2 touchdowns. Will Levis, 4 touchdowns. 3 to DeAndre Hopkins. It's kind of crazy how good he looked. The deep ball was there, the opportunities, the quick slants, the darts in the middle of the field as well. This offense could be good. And if he starts connecting with Treylon Burks, if he starts connecting with Chigakonkwo, I think he could have an even better game at the times, because there was a lot of big drops. Chigakonkwo wide open in the middle of the field, drops it. I think that could have been a touchdown as well. Treylon Burks, I think there was some of those balls were a little bit out of place, but I still have to say he has to come down with that catch as a first-round pick. We all believe in Treylon Burks. 19 for 29, over 230 yards and 4 touchdowns, 34 fantasy points in his debut. If you are struggling at the superflex position and you need a quarterback, you have to go in and target Will Levis just in hopes that something is going to happen. And he has a short week playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who in reality are pretty good defense, but have been struggling for the past couple weeks. We saw Trevor Lawrence this past week and how he was going as well. We saw the Pittsburgh Steelers struggle in the past couple weeks, even before their bye week. So if you do need a quarterback, Will Levis could be the perfect guy that you can target off of waiver wires going into week 9. All right, let's stay with the Tennessee Titans at the running back position. Tyjae Spears. Yes, Tyjae Spears, and let me tell you why. Obviously, the biggest caveat here is that Derrick Henry needs to be moved, and I think he could rise in my rankings, in my waiver wire list, if this does happen. The trade deadline here is coming up on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if Derrick Henry does get traded, which they have said, they always say, he's not going to get traded, and then he gets traded, right? What if there's a big splash, somebody that really is willing to pay for Derrick Henry? The rumors are the Cowboys, the Bills as well. Maybe one of these teams does acquire Derrick Henry. Tyjae Spears automatically jumps to a startable week-to-week running back that you may need if you are struggling at the running back position with all these injuries or bye weeks. Okay, Tyjae Spears already, if you look at from weeks 1 to 9, or weeks 1 to 8, he's averaging 54% of the snap share so far. That's with Derrick Henry in the game. Derrick Henry is no longer getting that 80+% snap share that he was getting, these past couple years. They are realizing that, okay, we can't build our team around Derrick Henry. And if you get Tyjae Spears off the waiver wires right now, it's kind of bare, available in 43% of ESPN leagues and 64% of sleeper leagues. Tyjae Spears could easily be a starting running back coming to you in the next couple of weeks. So definitely pick up Tyjae Spears if you can. All right, my next waiver wire priority, maybe a little bit of a favorite here. That is Quentin Johnston. We have finally seen that opportunity for Quentin, right? A lot of people were skeptical, and I think there is still a little bit of an asterisk here because Josh Palmer was injured. He was already questionable coming into this game, but we can see how good and how well he can be utilized when he does get the opportunities. I still don't believe they're using him the correct way. There are some plays where you see him doing the quick slants and he gets the yards after the catch. That is his strength, but they're kind of using him as a contested catch wide receiver, and that is not what I think they're going to be doing moving on, because they have saw a glimpse of that yards after the catch ability with Quinton in this game. Caught 6 out of 5 targets, 50 yards, and over 10 fantasy points. This was the first time he is getting over 69% of the snap share. And obviously, yes, the biggest caveat here is Josh Palmer was injured. He was in and out of the game the whole time, and they were playing from they had the lead and they still were throwing the ball, which I thought was really good, because they really are showing that Quentin Johnston wants to be relevant in this team. Right, he had the second highest snap share amongst wide receivers. He had the the third highest route run behind Joshua Palmer still. So I think there's still going to be bumps if Joshua Palmer is going to get healthy. But if they are seeing, hey, this is our future, we need to implement him. We need to have creative plays, which they have said. Brandon Staley said that, hey, he had a lot of plays in the playbook for him this week. We saw him. He's getting rapport with Justin Herbert. If that continues, we can see that grow week in and week out here, because this team really is competing to get into the playoffs. Every single game is going to be important for them. They have a tough matchup next week against the Jets, which has a really good secondary. Do they shut down Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston? Does he have the opportunity to really open up coming into week 9? So keep that in mind. Look, Quentin Johnston currently available in over 68% of ESPN leagues and 65% of sleeper leagues. He is somebody you can pick up, stash, and if he continues to roll, you can probably start him as a flex coming in. So pick up Quentin Johnston if you can. All right, my next wide receiver on this list, my 8th waiver wire priority, is Demario Pop Douglas. And there is a brilliant opportunity for him to step in to a lot of workload, a lot of opportunity here. Obviously, let's start off with Kendrick Bourne, right? Kendrick Bourne is the one who was seeing all the targets, all the opportunities, all the snap share, but now he did leave this game with a knee injury, and they're going to be waiting MRI. Maybe as you're watching this video, that information is already out. Does he miss 1 to 2 weeks? 3 to 4 weeks? Does he go on IR? Or maybe he is going to be day to day. We just don't know yet. I don't know yet as I'm recording this video. And if he is going to miss significant time, Demario Douglas is going to be having a good opportunity to step into a lot of workload. I mean, we saw those opportunities here today. Had the highest percent of snaps amongst wide receivers with 41% of the snaps. Led this team in targets, had a carry as well, led the team in route runs as well. He was the number 1 wide receiver on this team when Kendrick Bourne went down, and we've seen the opportunities Kendrick Bourne has had in targets. 6 targets, 10 targets, 11 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets. The list goes on 6 targets as well. I think if Kendrick Bourne does miss time, Demarius Douglas steps into that wide receiver 1 role where he has been shining, right? We've seen him shine. This past week, caught 5 out of 7 targets, 25 yards, little short passes, obviously just under 8 fantasy points. But we've seen those we've seen a double-digit game where he caught 4 out of 6 for over 11 fantasy points. And I think that can be the type of opportunities you get in a flex opportunity. So if you do need a wide receiver and you do need somebody in the flex position, especially with once again, over 17 players that are going to be missing this week that you need to fill in, Demario Pop Douglas could easily grow into this role. And obviously this team is struggling, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot no matter what. So pick him up if you do need a wide receiver. My next waiver wire priority at the running back position is kind of a just in case. I do believe he should already be rostered in a lot. We have been saying that if his true running back 1 does go down, he is a top running back in this league. And that is Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet is currently my 9th waiver wire priority. I do believe he could be higher depending on how things go. Once again, he should already be rostered. But what's interesting is that he is still available in a lot of leagues, available in over 70% of ESPN leagues and 50% of sleeper leagues. And that is just absurd. And what's crazy is that he actually led this backfield in snap percentages this past week. 56% of the snaps went to Zach Charbonnet against the Cleveland Browns this past week and 42% against Kenneth Walker. I do believe this was game script, right? Because we saw the struggles early for Zach Charbonnet. I mean, we saw the struggles for both teams, and then somehow, the Seahawks come out of that victorious. But what I will say is anything can happen now, and I do believe Zach Charbonnet at this very moment, and this could be very premature. I was saying that he's a glorified backup, right? I mean, if Kenneth Walker does go down, he is a perfect backup to take the opportunities away. But I don't believe in the long term he is going to be somebody that's going to be the 50-50 workload. I do believe Kenneth Walker is still going to be this guy. I just believe it was matchup based. right? The Cleveland Browns are really good against the run. They currently give up the 10th least amount of points to the running back position. And I think that it was a main priority for this offense, okay? So keep that in mind. He did have 5 carries on the ground, 53 yards, which was pretty big in the yards. Yards per carry with over 10 yards per carry. Caught 2 out of 2. 2 out of 2 passes in the air, over 8 fantasy points versus his teammate and Kenneth Walker, who only had 8 carries for 66 yards, who also had some good yards per carry, 8 yards per carry, only 8 fantasy points. That's a 50-50 workload, right? I don't believe this is sustainable. This is why he is lower than my priority. But like we've always said, if Kenneth Walker does miss time, which we have seen, he missed a game or two, Zach Charbonnet can easily take this workload and handle this workload and be a startable running back for you in the future. So keep that in mind. Zach Charbonnet, my 9th waiver wire priority. All right, my last and final waiver wire priority for this list is Royce Freeman. If you do need another running back, I do believe he can get you another week or two before Kyren Williams does come back. And we saw what he did this week, right? 9 carries, 44 yards. He does find the end zone for a touchdown versus Darrell Henderson. Gets 12 carries, 31 yards, caught 3 out of 3 targets, and he had 11 fantasy points. This was a 50-50 workload or backfield this past week for the Los Angeles Rams. They did play the Dallas Cowboys, and they were down often, which I think did lead to this skewed game script, right? 33 snaps for Royce Freeman versus Darrell Henderson, 29 snaps coming into this week. Now they do have a good matchup next week against the Green Bay Packers, who currently give up the 4th most amount of points to the running back position. I do believe this could help them, bounce back, whether it's Darrell Henderson and or Royce Freeman. If you do need a running back, if you're struggling with injuries or struggling at the bye week, Royce Freeman could be a good 10 plus point game type of player coming into this. We don't expect a massive workload, especially another week or two until Kyren Williams does come back. So don't spend too much fab on him, but he is somebody I'm willing to pick up, available in over 80% of ESPN leagues and just under 80% of sleeper leagues. Okay, so that is my list. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I do have some honorable mentions right before I let you guys go here. And once again, there's been so many injuries and weird things happening in the league so far this year, and this is obviously catering more to superflex or maybe even one quarterback, depending on how you operate. Here's some honorable mentions. Mitchell Trubisky here. Obviously, he's probably gonna start here with Kenny Pickett missing time on Thursday night. Not saying you should pick him up, but somebody to keep an eye on if you're in a super flex league. Same thing with Taylor Heineke. Looks like he is going to win this job. We kind of like Taylor Heineke for fantasy purposes. He just slings the ball. He goes crazy. That's going to be interesting. Daniel Jones, I know it's not sexy right now, but this offense is going to look better with Daniel Jones and Andrew Thomas when he does come back. Taysom Hill has been vulturing targets and opportunities this past week from, Alvin Kamara. Even though Alvin Kamara had a good game, Taysom Hill, 22 fantasy points this past week. That is the up and down opportunities with Taysom Hill. Rashid Shaheed, he's also the boomer bust guy. If he catches those deep passes, they're touchdowns normally, right? If he doesn't get called for a PI, those are the opportunities. I'm pretty sure if Rashid Shaheed, if we see those penalties, I'm pretty sure he probably leads the league. Well, he won't lead the league in yards. I think that is clearly so many other people. But he would definitely be at least top 15 in yards, I would say. Top 20 in yards if Rashid Shaheed caught all those passes. I think anyone would be. Brandon Cooks is also picking up his opportunities here. It's not something really exciting. This is why he's not on my list. I do believe he should be available. I drafted Brandon Cooks in a lot of leagues saying that he was going to have a good opportunity. This is the last 2 weeks has been his first double-digit games. And I think if it happens one more week, you could have the opportunity to start him. They play the Philadelphia Eagles and then my beloved Giants, where I think you can see him find the end zone again in the next 2 games. And last but not least is Michael Mayer. He's been on this list multiple times, for myself and Zach, and they play on Monday night. So hopefully he has a good game, and this is another reason why he should be picked up and put on your team off of waiver wire. So hopefully that helps, guys. Hopefully you got a dub in week 8. Good luck in week 9, and hopefully as well you can get that win as well with whatever you have coming in on Monday Night Football as well. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. And then any information, sit questions, fantasy hotline, whatever you need is all on flockfantasy.com. So make sure you use our promo code LAND, guys. And as always, It's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.